Thank you very much, Gustav. And hello, everyone. My name is Mary, and I'm a project manager at NTACT. And before you hear Jesper's story, I'd just like to briefly explain how it is that we use personal stories at NTACT. We have a very strong presence at schools in general, where we engage pupils from 7th grade and higher and high schoolers all across Denmark in a dialogue about various subjects which all have relevancy to our society and how we perceive each other. And we also engage in this dialogue with other audiences as well, very often with different kind of professionals who are eager to expand their knowledge through the power of personal stories. For a lot of our projects, we also create school materials so that the teachers can prolong the dialogue in their classrooms afterwards. The story you are about to hear in a few minutes is from one of our projects that are called Extremely Democratic. And the reason why it's called Extremely Democratic is because it consists of different stories from people who have earlier in their lives been part of groups that were either radicalized, were very extreme or extremistic. Just to give you a few examples of what kind of stories this project also includes, we also have, for instance, a former Nazi leader. We have stories about from hooligans, about different religious radicalization also. But without further ado, I'd like to just say, Jesper, you are one of the storytellers from Extremely Democratic, and whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mary. 3 weeks before my deployment to Iraq, I am on a training exercise with the rest of my company. And on a dark and wet day, I accidentally shoot 2 of my colleagues. As the corpsman of the group, I am tasked with treating them both. I start performing CPR on the first one, and after 2 or 3 minutes, I realize that he is already dead. For him, I cannot do anything. The other one is kicking and screaming in pain. I can still save him, and I do. Even though I am messed up by this accident, I decide to complete my deployment to Iraq. And upon arrival in Iraq, I realized that I am in a very hostile environment. The insurgents, they use everything they have. They use rockets, mortars, landmines, IEDs, machine guns, hand grenades. Even the kids and the youth throw rocks at us when we are on a patrol in their cities. And a hatred starts growing inside me. During our 6-month deployment, we have more than 1,000 rocket attacks on our base. The insurgents, they fire at us all day. When we sleep, when we eat, when we take a shower, when we're on our phones with our loved ones, every single day, the rockets just keeps on coming. And for each rocket that hits inside our camp, the hatred inside me just grows and grows and grows. One day I take part in a firefight so fierce and violent that I, for the first time in my life, fear for my own life. I think that I'm supposed to die now. I see my life flashes before my eyes in pictures. I see everything that I love. When the firefight is over, around 20 dead insurgents lies before us. And I think I killed one of them myself, a human being. The mission is almost over. We are about to take a flight home back to Denmark. But before we go home, this hatred that has grown inside me, I needed to place it somewhere. And it's not difficult for me to place it at all. I place it on the Muslims. Not just the insurgents, not just the Iraqi people, but all the Muslims. Because in my eyes, they're all the same. They have dark hair, dark eyes, dark skin. They wear the same clothing and share one common religion, Islam. So I hate them all. It's much easier for me. A week after we come home from Iraq, there is a welcome home party at our garrison. And for the first time in my life, I tried cocaine. That little bag, 1 gram of cocaine, is the main part of me losing all control of my life. I start evolving in a downward spiral of bad choices and bad things. Soon I find myself involved in hooligan activities. I join a hooligan firm, and here I find everything that I was missing from the army, a place of belonging, a purpose of life, thrill and excitement when we are fighting rival fans of the police. And I also find a world of drugs. As I mentioned, I started with cocaine. I was doing cocaine in the weekends, but quickly I found out that it was not only in the weekends that I felt like shit. It was also Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So quickly I picked up the pace and I found myself taking cocaine on a daily basis. I took cocaine at home, at work, family dinners, my mom's place. I did coke all the time. But I found out there was a world of other drugs that I could make sure that my mind was too fucked up to take care of what I've seen and done. So then I started taking speed, ecstasy, MDMA, ketamine. I've done so many drugs that I can't remember all their names. But that wasn't exciting enough, because if you do that many hard drugs as I did, you're having problems sleeping, and sleeping you need to do once in a while. Then I started smoking weed, a lot of weed. On bad days, I smoked 7 large joints just to be able not to cope with the things I've seen and done. It numbed my mind, which was what I needed. I thought I needed it. But hooliganism, cocaine, and weed wasn't enough for me. I found out that my beloved country had been overrun by Muslims and blacks. I've never ever paid them any attention before my deployment to Iraq, but now I realized that they were here in great numbers. So then I joined a subculture at the hooligan scene in Denmark. I found another group of young and angry men just like me. We were standing together shoulder by shoulder with one arm raised in the air, shouting, "Denmark for Danes, foreigners out," around every stadium in Denmark and around every stadium in Europe. And I meant it. I meant all foreigners, especially the Muslims and the blacks. But that wasn't exciting enough for me either. I needed more. And the lifestyle I had was extremely expensive. Watching football 2 times a week, dressing up in expensive gear, doing a lot of expensive drugs. It cost me more money than I could earn in my job. So I started gambling. I always gambled in my youth, but on an acceptable level. But I quickly picked up the pace. I was betting all my money on football and going to casinos, high cocaine and Jack Daniels, and I was fucking shit at gambling. I was really bad at gambling, just as bad as anybody else. If there's sitting somebody behind the screen out there saying, "Oh, I'm in the plus, I've got it under control," then you are either extremely lucky or a fucking liar. You can't do it. It's not real. Now I lost my money even faster than before. And one day I received a letter from the bank stating, "Dear Jesper, we borrowed you 3,000 euros to help you pay for your rents that I've fallen behind with. We can see that you spent all your money on a casino, which wasn't a part of our deal. We need you to pay back the money immediately." And then I'm sitting there as a 22-year-old, quite fucked up man, and I have to pay 3,000 euros within a week, and I had no idea where to find the money. So I sat back and I gave it some thought, and I found out that I had a key for a supermarket that I used to work in many years before. And I was so lucky that the key still fit in the lock. So I decided to commit a robbery. On the 31st of January 2008, around 10 minutes past 8 in the evening, I enter the backyard of the supermarket wearing a mask and a gun in my hand. As I enter the backyard, a former colleague exits. She doesn't see me. I just suddenly grab her and point the gun into her head. I doesn't say anything. I turn her around and pushes her back through into the supermarket. I use her as a human shield in front of me. And then you can ask yourself, what did Jesper expect to meet in that supermarket? SWAT, the police, the army? In my mind, I was still in Iraq, and I was still at war. We find the office where the safe is kept, and in there I see 2 more of my former colleagues. So now I'm robbing 3 colleagues, 3 friends that I've known for many years. I went to dinner with some of them. I kissed with one of the girls, and I don't feel anything. I'm completely cold and sober as a bird. No drugs, no alcohol. I pointed the safe. I pointed the bag in my hand. I get the money. I run out of the supermarket and I follow the route to the spot where I have my changing clothing. I take off all the clothes, take on some new ones, and I follow the rest of the route to the train station. I walk up the stairs and I position myself in one end of the platform. I look to my right. I see the train approaching in the distance. I look down at my watch. It's timed. It's perfect. I look to the left. In the other end of the platform, I see 2 elderly ladies and a young girl, and everything is fine. I look to the right again. The train is now even closer to me. I take one last look to the left. Now I see 2 elderly ladies, 1 young girl, and 2 policemen. But I take a quick look down myself, and I think I don't look like a robber. They will just run past me. The train is now in front of me, and I'm about to enter it. The police, they grab me. It's game over. I'm being taken to the prison, and in the prison, I undergo some kind of psychological evaluation. And one day I receive a letter from the psychiatrist stating that I, Jesper Holm Pedersen, have severe PTSD. And I think to myself, no shit, Sherlock. I know something is wrong with me. Half a year ago, I was stationed as a soldier of Denmark in Iraq, and now I am in prison in Denmark for robbery. Instead of giving me a long prison sentence, they sentenced me to undergo psychological treatment with the Army's strengths. And I spent the next 7 years and about 200 sessions with my psychologist just to get to where I am today. A normal person with normal values, full of love and no abuses. But I want to tell you all that there is especially one person that I can thank for me being who I am today, and I'm still alive, and I'm not buried underground, that I'm not in prison, that I'm not a member of a bikers gang or something like that. And that person is my mom. My name is Jesper. I'm 35. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much for your story, Jesper.
You're welcome.
And what we always do after each show, and something that is very important to us at Contact, is we always facilitate a Q&A with the pupils and our storytellers. But today I'll just start with the first question. And so looking back now, Jesper, is there anything that your family or your friends or other people from your immediate circle that could have done something to help you or support you so you didn't end up in these groups, extreme groups that you came to be a part of?
Well, that's it's a really good questions, and I think if I need to answer it 100%, I will need about an hour of your time. We don't have that much time. I've had that question before, and my answer is always, for me, there wasn't anything to be done. I had killed one of my friends and wounded another one very badly, and coping with that was impossible for me. I needed to beat myself up mentally and physically, quite honestly. Every time I had a good thing going on, I destroyed it and I ruined it for myself. And I made sure that in the back of my mind, I felt like I was being punished for what I've done, because I wasn't punished in a legal way. I don't think anybody could have stopped me. It was faith for me to go down that way and end up where I ended shortly. But my family was there all the time. But I put up a facade when I came home from Iraq. I put up a facade. I put up 2, 3, 4, 5 facades, and it was impossible to penetrate them all to get to the real me, to see how much I was suffering. Really, my mom tried. My mom really tried, and every time I fell and I needed money to make sure that a pusher wouldn't come and cut up my fingers. She was there and she really tried, but I was just too good of not showing how bad it was actually.
Okay, so in a way, what I'm hearing you say is this, that you have to have some personal motivation to want to change first and foremost. But I also hear you say that your mother was always there by your side, trying to show support. And so I'm thinking that her support, even though you messed up time and time again, that just the fact that she kept on holding on to you maybe did that when you were ready, you could reach out or take the help that you were offered. Would you say that?
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
Absolutely true. If I hadn't had my mother and all the other great people in my life, I would have ended up in an even worse place. Probably suicidal, where I was when I was in my worst days. I was a bit suicidal. If I hadn't had I have a core family, and then with a lot of they're quite wealthy, so they could pay for everything that I needed. If I hadn't had that, I'm pretty sure I would have ended up in a much worse place, probably dead, or serving a long sentence in prison. Absolutely.
Okay. And I have another question for you, but there's also a question in the chat from Becklin Felix that is asking, what was your age when you were deployed in Iraq? How long time is it? How long ago is it?
Oh, it was in 2007, at the prime of my youth. I turned 22 in Iraq, and I turned 23 in prison. So that was 2 amazing birthdays that I missed out on. I was young, and some would say too young to be in a war zone. Not sure I agree on that perspective, but we certainly had younger people. We had some of 19 years old, and that is too young to be in a war zone. It's completely fucked.
Yeah. And another question is, so we talked about your immediate family, but what about the system? In your case, it would probably be the military, but is there any, could there have been other authorities that you wish would have done something or could have done something? Yeah.
That's absolutely true. In my case, the army would be the one having the responsibility of my life, but they only have the responsibility when I'm actually paid by the army. When I leave the army, I'm left to myself, and I can't see there is any authority in Denmark that would have been able to help me, unless I would raise my hand and say, sorry guys, I am messed up, I need help. And I wasn't strong enough to do that. When it comes to asking for help, it was almost impossible for me, because I built up that facade that I was strong, independent. I've been in a war zone, I can handle anything myself, and that perception of myself actually would be such a strong part of my personal view on myself, that I actually believed, even though I was in the shits and I was sitting at home scared and shaking and in dire needs of money, I would always say to myself before I fell asleep, I always say to myself, tomorrow you will change it. Tomorrow you can do better. Tomorrow you will win that big prize. You will win all the money, and then everything will be fine. Next day, the exact same. Everything was shit. Everything was bad. But before I went to bed, I would tell myself the same story, and I believed it. So instead of raising my hand saying, I need help, I didn't ask for help. And that is my biggest regret ever, that I didn't feel strong enough to ask for help.
Okay, thank you. So we are running out of time for now, but so I'd just like to say thank you again for always sharing your story, and yeah, and I'll just say, so the biggest point is always the personal motivation for wanting change is the first step, and then if you do that, other people will also be there to grab you. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.